r/AskReddit. Managers of Reddit, what's the worst thing an employee has done to get themselves fired? Someone got fired because he went in the bathroom on his break and huffed a bottle of canned air and passed out. He was a good employee too. What a waste. Guy was just hired. He asked to go home on his second day because he shit his pants. Alright, shit happens. A little too much information, but what can you do? He must be an honest soul. Went home for the afternoon, came in on the third day, shit his pants again, and asked to go home. There was no fourth day. One employee was constantly stealing food from the refrigerator that other employees placed in there for lunch and late work night dinners. Eventually, after weeks of complaints, the IT department set up a hidden camera and caught the woman taking 2 yogurts, a Weight Watchers TV dinner and a can of Coke in one swoop. At another job, a co-worker got snippy with the receptionist during an internal phone call. As she clicked the phone, she said "ducking bitch," but the click did not disconnect the call. The receptionist was still on the line and said, "What did you call me?" HR would later get involved. It was investigated and the co-worker was terminated. Dumbest, maybe not the worst, a mechanic in my chemical plant wrapped expensive copper tubing around his chest and put his coat over it. It was a really cold day and it started drawing up to where he couldn't breathe. Just as he got to the guard gate, the guards had a good laugh unwinding the soon-to-be unemployed mechanic. When I was a manager in a smaller kennel, 2 of the female employees came independently to say one of the other workers had shown them some very inappropriate images and made a lot of inappropriate comments about the animals. Checked his socials just to see what kind of things he's posting publicly, and it's all the worst furry stuff and sexualizing animals. Also saw some pictures of him with the dogs at work that had some very inappropriate comments alongside them. He didn't work for much longer and lost his shit when I told him we can't allow him to work around animals or give him a reference. Early 20s kid disappeared for a week on a heroin binge. His friends dropped him off in the middle of the day the next week, walking into the office high off his balls as if nothing happened. The next day his dad came to apologize, explain what happened, let us know that he was going back to rehab, and ask if he could continue working afterwards. First job in insurance. Weird guy wanted to be in Special Investigation Unit, the team that investigates fraud. He got it in his head that, rather than investigating external fraud as part of the claims department, they were a kind of clandestine CIA operation who were listening in on our phone calls, and you could get tapped to join if you were smart enough and hardworking enough. He was fired for sleeping at his desk repeatedly. Cart associate at Walmart was playing on his phone while using the cart mule to push a large line of carts. He ran over an elderly woman, breaking her leg and hip. Was immediately fired. Not sure what all happened to him legally, but he was out of our store. Blew up $45,000 worth of equipment through shoddy electrical work he had been already trained for. To be fair, this one's also on our management. We probably shouldn't have let him have a go at even this simple electrical work, considering how unreliable he had shown himself to be thus far. Not a manager, but have been in the restaurant biz for 30 years. Worst I saw was a 40+ chef hitting on and basically attempting to molest our 16-year-old hostess. I caught him myself. He had her cornered in the dish room with nobody around. Even though he was a full chef and me just a sous, and 10 years my senior, I basically kinda fired him. Told him if he didn't leave now of his own free will and never come back, he would be leaving on a stretcher, possibly in a bag. Poor girl was in tears. It's been somewhere around 15 years, and it still infuriates me to think about. She pressed charges, it was all on camera, and he was arrested. Got off light though on a plea, which also infuriates me. Got a couple months in jail, not even prison, years of probation, and didn't even have to register on the sex offenders list, which also infuriates me until this day. He was never a chef anywhere around here ever again though. We blackballed the duck out of him. Arg. Sorry, had to get that out. I'm not a manager, but an employee of an airport cargo handling company. We had a guy, crash a brand new jet engine air start unit into a jet engine. Bosses were not happy. Removing the high limit switch on a dryer causing the clothes to catch on fire. Twice. I wasn't the manager, but when I was in retail, I was training a new guy. Seemed okay, but during the first break we were in the break room just making small talk, and he just says, "So, do you shave your pussy?" I just got up and went to the manager's office. Word beat me there. I was told to take the rest of the day paid. Never saw him again. Literally just shoveled money out of the cash register into his pockets with 3 separate cameras looking at him. He took several $1,000s. Left on shift. She was a nurse for what it's worth, so she didn't just leave a store or something. She left her patients unattended and her certified nursing assistant left with her to go duck her CNA at the dog park across the street. Came back and finished her shift. Night shift. Posted "I love ducking" on Facebook at 3 AM during said shift, which her husband, not the CNA, saw, which led to him showing up at the facility threatening staff members. Last I heard about her, she lost her license due to trafficking fentanyl. I read that as dumbest instead of worst and started typing this, so I'll finish it out anyway. I managed a call center for a while. One of my staff was a 23-year-old guy who just could not figure out how to get to work on time. He had his own car and only lived like 15 to 20 minutes away, but he would be perpetually up to a half-hour late shift after shift. We had a generous tardiness/absence policy, 3 strikes for unexcused absences, but an unexcused tardy was only half a strike, and we were even nice enough to give him just a verbal warning at least 2 or 3 times instead of starting to count them, because the call center wasn't one that had like an inbound call service level. It was just outbound calls, so the time you lost hurt you in other metrics and killed your chance at getting bonuses. But soon enough he had burned through 5 of the 6 unexcused tardiness he was allowed. The last time he was tardy, I brought him into my office and told him this was his final written warning. If he was even a minute late clocking in without a legitimate excuse for the next 90 days, he would be terminated on the spot. That was on a Tuesday. On Wednesday, he was scheduled to arrive at 4 PM for an evening shift. He walks in at 4:25 PM holding a Starbucks cup in his hand. I couldn't help it. The drive-thru took forever. I took his badge and walked him out. I hope he learned from it. I was a newly hired manager at McDonald's. The guy before me was working the cash register. This store was very highly trafficked. It was right off of the interstate, right on the border of city and middle of nowhere. It was the first place to stop and get some food for travelers coming in, and the last place to stop and get some food for travelers leaving out. It was not uncommon to have over $1,000 in under an hour in the cash register, and policy was to drop money in the safe at least once every hour. So this new guy comes in, works for a few hours, but the manager never did the drops. After about 4 hours, the employee goes to the bathroom and disappears. Turns out he left with over $4,000 from the cash register. Police were called because obviously they have the guy's ID, address, and information on file, only to find out that everything was false. He stole someone's ID and social that looked similar to him and used a fake address. I don't think the police ever found him or figured out who he was. Supposed to drive a car from one city to another on a Friday, probably 2-hour trip, took it to Mexico and partied for a weekend and delivered the car on Monday. This was not even a border state. Not a manager, but a carpenter with several employees, but I had a worker doing a window replacement in a person's home. The room he was working in had a fully stocked bar. Employee drank a $400 bottle of liquor and homeowner found him passed out in their guest room. I had an employee pull out a bag of meth and ask another employee if he wanted to smoke some of it. Another employee was supposed to go canvassing in a company car. After hours of being gone and not answering phone calls, the police called from a county 3 hours away to inform me that the employee had crashed the car because he was high on heroin and I needed to make arrangements to pick up the totaled car. Got mildly injured by the garage door in the warehouse after ducking around. Agreed to go to the hospital after his supervisor very clearly told him there would be a drug test and he didn't have to go to the hospital, and that he would be fired if he tested positive on the drug test. Remember, this was a mild injury, like a small scrape. Saying this as a coworker who saw it, not a boss trying to downplay. Guess who got fired? We had an HR woman and a male executive at our company both get fired. They were accidentally walked in on in their executive's office. They were found to be both partaking in lines of cocaine, and the woman was busy playing the Manskin flute. Both were terminated. I will preface this by saying I'm not a manager, and that this individual wasn't fired, but this is probably the craziest work story I have, so I'm rolling with it. I work for a very large Fortune 500 company in tech. 2 employees, a manager and our director at the time, were all expecting kids around the same time, so our office threw a baby shower for them. Probably 50 to 60 people attended, including our senior director. We were in this large conference room. The whole thing was impressively catered. They each got diaper cakes, and it was a pretty impressive event for a work baby shower. One of the adjacent teams we work with closely from another office also made a congratulatory video. Lot of effort put into this. Senior director then leaves the room, and one of the managers that reports to the director, having a baby, announces he has something for us all to watch. He airplays his phone to the big screen. The first thing to pop up is a video that has a woman with her tits out, wearing assless leather pants, bent over a backless wooden bar stool, being ducked from behind by a dude in leather. Room goes dead quiet for a solid 5 to 10 seconds, trying to confirm with their brain what their eyes were seeing. Meanwhile, this guy scrambles to get this hardcore porno off the projector. The room finally erupts in laughter, and that pretty much ended the event. Not only was he not fired, but years later was promoted. Super talented guy, but I still can't believe he wasn't fired / didn't resign. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe.